What's going on, Movie Meals? Movie Meals, we're back. We're back in Meals Meals.
It's been a
My
hot minute.
incredibly busy winter has come to an end. Kind
Ah,
of. Not yet. Next weekend, maybe. But hey, how about them Go Birds in the Super Bowl? Let's go, Eagles! Somewhere over there.
that
There it is, right there. The DVD of the first Super Bowl win in Eagles history, just so we can constantly have it on rewatch. Um, Anyway, we're here to talk all that DC news. There's a little bit of Star Wars news that I think is bigger than it got credit for that I want to touch on. But Kyle, desperate to talk about James Gunn, Peter Sapphire, whatever you call this bad boy. But let's get into it. We got lights. Look, we're movie meals. Are you kidding me? Look at this. Look at this little shrine to the boys on the beach. There's a little glare. We're working on the glare. Give me a hot minute, pals. Working on the glare, but look, there's the boys on the beach.
it's it's nowhere near my glorious backdrop, but hey, we can't all be as cool as
Yeah, we
me.
can't all have
So
nice things. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, I know. It is what
All
it
right.
is.
Well, thank you to Movie Meal patrons, Kimberly Karen. Go join the patronage. The podcast is back weekly, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Well, and if you actually go to the Patreon, sign up, maybe they'll be a little more consistent. They were pretty consistent for the
Yeah.
last month and a half. It just was Christmas, New Year's. We're traveling. I've been gone almost every weekend for the last month and a half.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. He
but
was.
let's start here. Kyle, I'll let you take the reins on this news. Let's hit it in, if we can, in order of the announcements that James Gunn did it. But you go ahead. You take the reins here.
I'm
I'm
just
gonna
gonna
play
follow
this.
this handy article from Variety that was
Love
um
Variety. Great app.
breaking
They got a
down.
great app. I got their
You have
app.
their
It's phenomenal.
you have their app? Really? Oh.
They have a Variety app. Why would I not have the app? How do you think I keep up to date with the movie news?
Oh, Twitter. I followed them on
I do
Twitter.
that too. The app,
But
wonderful little app, Variety. Not a sponsor, could be if you. I'm in a mood
yeah.
today. I got some actual sleep. I'm in a mood. Anyway, continue.
Well, yeah, so Tuesday, I believe it was Tuesday, James Gunn released a video out to everyone announcing the new projects that was coming in this new revision of DC and the DC universe that they're creating. He said that the first chapter is called Gods and Monsters, but that it's only part of the first chapter that he's currently announcing. So maybe some stuff that we still want to see out of the DC universe is still yet to come. But for right now, he first started off by announcing 10 projects, both film and TV, which surprised me by that amount. I was expecting like 5 for both film and TV. I wasn't expecting like 10 to come to fruition, but I don't know,
Sure.
not complaining anyway. Just thought it'd be a little bit on the lower tier. But let me see what they have listed here first. All right, so first up, I think this was kind of the biggest one in my opinion, is the title of the new Superman movie called Superman Legacy, which James Gunn is saying is the start of the DCU, and that it's not
The
going to
official
be an
start, yeah.
origin. Yeah, it's not going to be an origin story, but it's going to be like in the first days of him being Superman, like him starting out in the Daily Planet, and it's going to focus on him balancing his human upbringing versus his Kryptonian heritage. Gunn is still running the project. I still don't hear an announcement about who the director is. No one has, but I think at this
It's
point we could
probably
say
gonna
that
be
James,
Gunn.
it's probably going to be Gunn. He also is quoted saying that it's going to be a Superman for everyone. It's a 4 quadrant film that's going to speak to everyone in the world. But he also mentioned that there's going to be a separate Superman movie still produced by J.J. Abrams through Bad Robot, and it's supposed to exist outside of the DCU, which is also kind of noteworthy
That's the
while I'm
big
on this
first thing,
topic.
yeah. That's the first kind
Yeah,
of big
it's
thing he talked about.
yeah, definitely. Um, I still like the sounds of it from what we heard back when he mentioned this project a month ago or so, I believe. Um, I'm excited for it. Like I know that unfortunately Henry Cavill isn't coming back for it, but I still just want to see Superman kind of done right, where it's like the uplifting superhero that everyone just loves and wants to root for. I kind of miss that from him. I know that we tried something a little different from Zack Snyder that was probably maybe going to be in that vein. We just don't know at this point, but I just like what Gunn is saying when it comes to like what I would like about a Superman movie right now.
I think the most interesting thing he started with is the fact that there is going to be Elseworlds projects. Right? That's what he
Mm,
titled them is Elseworld projects. And um it's left the door open in a way that has really made fans upset when talking about Superman Legacy because he basically said the door's open for every actor to stay in their role except for Henry Cavill, who's the one that everybody wants. So
sure.
what I don't like is this kind of backpedaling that I think we've seen from them already because he came in originally and James Gunn's tweeting and he's being awesome on Twitter and he's saying, we're not going to do this. We're going to do this. It's a complete reboot, blah, 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 blah. Oh, that's not true. We are rebooting, kind of. We're still going to have two separate things happening here. So there is going to be two Batmans running around. Like at some, my
And
guess
two
is they're,
Supermans, and two Supermans by
yeah,
the sounds of
yeah.
it.
My guess is with Batman, since they announced that Reeves will stay separate, is that they won't film a Batman movie until after that trilogy has finished because I think that's his plan, Matt Reeves, to make a trilogy and then move on to something else.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, Joker made $1 billion. There's no way your WB's not going to say no. We have to do another Joker. We have to. We're bankrupt
As
right now.
as much as we disagree, yeah, that's why for sure.
um,
No, you continue. Sorry, I was about to interrupt.
Well, in terms of Superman Legacy, the first kind of big project he brings up, I think that's fine. I think starting with Superman is fine. A Superman for everyone. Ugh, come on. Man of Steel was good. Stop. Stop. What are you doing? You're just a cynic at the end of the day, right? That's the only reason you don't like Superman, because you're a cynic and you just hate good times. No, I'm just kidding. But I like Man of Steel a lot. I think Henry Cavill was a great Superman who got kind of screwed over by WB, but I think starting over is fine. I think starting with a little bit of younger Superman is fine. I do love the fan backlash at the title where they're like, legacy. We're just starting. He doesn't have a legacy. He's just starting. And it's like, they're just
Right.
mad because they really want it to be Henry Cavill at the end of the day, is what they want. And I love Henry Cavill. I'm excited to see what he's going to go on and do. I still think Game of Thrones is a huge option for him. I think um, Star Wars would be real interesting with Henry Cavill. He would make an incredible Darth Revan if you ever actually get the balls, Kathy, to do something. But anyway, that's my kind of my base thoughts on Superman Legacy. It sounds great to me. I'm excited to see. I hope Gunn doesn't have his quips. Superman to me is not a funny character in the sense that he's funny without meaning to be funny is where his humor comes from, and that's not Gunn's writing humor style. So I'm real curious to see how we go with him. I do not hope any of the Guardians get brought in to be Superman. Um like Chris Pratt or something. I think you go unknown. I think you try to go Tom Holland with Superman and find somebody
Oh.
who is like legit. No, I'm not saying Tom Holland as Superman.
Oh.
I'm
Oh.
saying
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
find someone who is like Tom Holland or Andrew Garfield who were just obsessed with the character. They grew up loving it, blah blah blah. They want to do it justice.
Sure.
As in terms of JJ Abrams, JJ right now could win the Oscar, and I still don't know if I'd be back on his good side. I just hated Rise of Skywalker that much. We'll get to maybe an interesting conversation about that though at the end here. But anyway, what's next?
Um. Real quick, can I add on to what the thoughts that you
Absolutely.
had? Um.
Absolutely.
I
Of
kind of
course,
agree
it's your
with you
show.
about the. I agree with you
You're the
about the
movie, man.
confusion. You're the movie man.
No,
Stop.
let's be honest. I'm the movie, you're the meals. You're the snack around these parts. You're the snack. You just are. You just are.
He's in such a complimenting mood. I love it.
I know it's gonna die soon.
Yeah, but I gotta enjoy this while I can. I do get what you're talking about the backpedaling when it comes to like the castings that they're saying, oh, like these actors could come back except for Cavill. Like, what do you mean by
Yeah,
that
but the
exactly?
but the child predator, welcome with open arms back.
I'm going to
Ridiculous.
I'm going to take a wild guess based on absolutely nothing and think that he's saying that because they still have movies with the old cast coming out. So The
Yeah, I
Flash,
agree.
Aquaman 2. Yeah, we know about the Ezra Miller, all that bad
Hang
stuff,
on.
but
Hang on.
okay.
Sorry. Here's the real thing that might be the big test. It might depend on how much money all these movies make. If Aquaman 2
Oh,
goes
for
on to
sure.
make a
Yeah.
crap ton of money, billion and a half dollars, James Gunn's probably looking down or looking at the Zazzy boy who's saying, "Nope, Elseworlds, they're making a third one. We're bankrupt. You know how many shows I've canceled? Velma's not getting me the money I thought it would. I need money here. So let's get going." Anyway, sorry, continue.
N No, you're just bringing my point, like, they still have to make these movies still have to be released, and they still want them to make money, no matter what's going on with the future plans, no matter what's going on within some of the actors, like, they still want these movies to succeed, so they probably right now are just saying, "Look, it's possible that they could come back. That's why we want you guys to go out and see these movies." Um, but I feel like at least with Ezra Miller, they're not coming back. Like, I just don't see any way that they're coming back. No matter how much they're saying, like, "Oh, they're doing really well when it comes to therapy and yada yada yada." They're not coming back. They will recast that role. But I mean, who knows? Maybe they do decide to keep Jason Momoa. Maybe they do decide to keep Gal Gadot. We still don't know about like what her role in this is, although we did hear something Amazon related that we'll get into later, but um I kind of agree. Like I don't really like hearing that stuff, but I get it business wise. Like from a fan, it's kind of annoying, but for a business, I kind of get why you have to do that for the time being. Plus, a lot of these projects are so far down the road that something could change midway through this year or even next year. Like we could hear about new castings or hearing that they're coming back and we're just gonna have to deal with it. So I don't know. I kind of agree with your thoughts there. It's annoying, but I get why they do it.
What's
Uh,
next?
next next up on this list is a new movie called The Authority, which is excuse me. It's an ensemble movie about superhumans who have less than idealistic approach to saving the world. Uh, James Gunn says that he's really excited to bring these characters to life.
So they're the
Uh,
Suicide Squad.
it
Anti-heroes.
they're anti-heroes. It sounds more like they're in the vein of maybe The Boys as compared to the Suicide Squad, just based on what I've been learning about them throughout this week, because this is a comic series that I've never knew about myself. He says that Gunn is
Well,
it looks like
your credit
Gunn
is
is
taken
saying that the
away.
movie is being written, but he's not saying who the screenwriter is. Although he is saying like there was a screenwriters roundtable that he assembled of like comic
Yeah.
book creators and screenwriters, so maybe one of them is involved in this project as well. Um, and
Interesting.
this is one of the many projects that had me scratching my head. Like, I wonder if they're going to be the possible antagonists for maybe the Superman movie or maybe for just the Gods and Monsters arc that we're going through that could lead into like possibly a Justice League
You
movie, like
know,
a versus battle type thing. Not sure.
maybe when they brought him in to do Suicide Squad 2, everybody was like, "Oh, do Guardians, do Guardians." Maybe this is really his Guardians, right? If it's not necessarily bad guys, but it's these more anti-heroes, lesser known comic. I wonder if it's a Zazzy Boy or Gunn himself or Sapphire Boy. I'm not giving you nicknames because you don't deserve them. They're phenomenal nicknames, by the way, when I know they're watching. Um,
Yeah, of course they are.
but maybe they came to the table and said, "You need to make like what is DC's version of the Guardians of the Galaxy?" And James Gunn goes, "Oh, it's probably realistically the Authority is probably the closest thing I can think of." And he's like, "Do that. I want that." Chris
Interesting.
Pratt main lead, Dave Batista bring him in. Bradley Cooper voicing a squirrel this time.
Sure,
Uh
sure.
yeah, when are we gonna get Squirrel Girl? Side note, isn't that's Marvel, isn't it? Where's Squirrel
That's
Girl with Anna
Marvel.
Kendrick? I've been dying to see
I
that
don't know.
film. Anyway,
You want a good Disney Plus series? There you go. That could easily be one of them. Uh yeah, for the Authority, I don't necessarily agree that they're the equivalent of Guardians of the Galaxy per se, but I do feel like they're so
you
in
don't know
the
nothing about them.
obscurity. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know anything about them, but I think just based on what I'm hearing, the tone and the vibe of those comics don't sound like the tone and the vibe of the Guardians comics. Neither do those
What's the tone
characters.
more? More violent?
Uh Violent, self-serious. Um
So more of the boys, like you were saying.
Yeah, that's just what I'm getting anyway. And not that
You
I've
see,
re
though,
Yeah, you go.
you go
What are
ahead.
you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna say
Well,
The Boys was the most successful and most watched superhero show of 2022.
mhm.
So maybe they're looking at that then, and they're saying this is what we need. We need violence to the absurd degree.
Yeah, which kinda has me worried that they're thinking about, like, what's hot and what's trending versus what works for an overall story arc,
That's what
you
DC
know?
always does.
Yeah, that has me a little worried. I'm gonna trust that that's not what they're doing, but that's just in the back of my mind. I'm just going in with the idea that maybe since they want this Superman approach to be like a bright beacon of a bright future for like DC, that's kind of like the theme, quasi theme that's going to be going on with like Superman as the starting point. They're hoping for it to move forward. That the Authority is like the overarching villains that we're getting a story for, and then it's like a good counterbalance between the two, like good foils for one another. That's just my hope anyway. I have no idea or no basis on like that's the approach, but just with those two movies sounding so different, that's just what I'm kind of piecing together and hoping what happens. You know what I
Sure,
mean?
sure.
Uh okay.
What's
So
next?
after that, Variety has listed The Brave and the Bold, which is the DCU's version of Batman. As we
With
mentioned earlier,
Damien.
it's with Damian, they're gonna bring in Robin, the Damian Wayne version of Robin. Sorry, I just had a weird
Damian Wayne is the one who
brain
does get beat
fart.
by a crowbar, doesn't he? Or is it a different
No,
Robin?
that's Jason Todd. Damian Wayne
Oh,
was the secret son of Bruce
mm-hmm.
and Talia al
I knew
Ghul,
that.
and he gets trained by the League of
The
Assassins,
As you do. I mean, so did
as you do.
Batman, according to
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan.
um. So yeah, it's gonna be the DCU's version of Batman. It's gonna be different from Robert Pattinson's Batman movies, which are part of like the Elseworlds chunk of the DC movies that they're gonna
The good
make.
worlds, as I'm calling it.
Yeah.
The great
He
worlds.
James Gunn, what great worlds. James Gunn did mention that he's going to base this movie off of the Grant Morrison run of the Batman comics, which has a really good interpretation of Damian Wayne by what I remember hearing. It's still a run that I haven't read yet, so I'm really excited to hear that that's what he's going to base it off of, and it's going to encourage me to finally go and read it. As is for like the other comics that he also brought up that are good runs that he's inspired by and that people are now checking out and selling out on like websites like Amazon. So it's just really cool to see him really champion comics. And yeah, that's about it for what they mentioned about Brave and the Bold. But I don't know. I like the title. It's a very Batman-esque title to me. Reminds me of the Batman the Brave and the Bold cartoon, although I doubt it's going to be in the same vein.
That
But
I was thinking that too.
yeah, it's pretty cool. Same with the Batman too. The Batman was also a cartoon title for a Batman show. That was pretty good too. Anyway, I just like the sounds that of the inspiration of what this movie is going to be from. And I just hope that we get a blue costume Batman. We haven't had that yet. I want to see them try to make a really good
Now,
blue costume Batman.
excuse me, I'm pretty sure there's some tints of blue in George Clooney's outfit, especially
Maybe
around the
from the
nipples.
neon lights that are beaming down on him, but otherwise,
It would be a great Batman? Chris Pratt. You know who would make a great Damian Wayne? Tom Holland. Why am I not an exec? I just don't understand. I You kidding me?
what did Marvel do? They got those guys, bring them in.
Exactly.
Boom, instant
Uh
money.
More Batman sounds great. Hope it's good. Care more when
That's
you got
it.
a script writer and an actor. Yeah, I care more. Right now I've got my Batman. Robert Pattinson to me might be the best Batman we've ever had. So, I'm that's my focus, you know? Give me that. Give me Matt Reeves making something awesome. Give me Barry as the Joker. Come on. You kidding me? All right.
It's
What's next?
real quick. I do want to mention that it's going to be interesting to see how they tackle the Robin part of it. I'm not sure if they're going to go with him being actually 10 years old. I kind of doubt it. That would
I
probably be a
hope
little
so.
that for live action. I just wonder if that would actually
Make
work or
him
not.
5.
Make it 5. Alex, no.
Yeah, it'd be pretty
That's
cool though,
child
man.
abuse.
Hey, no, there's that movie where those babies could talk to each other and they're spies. You kidding me? We could have a 5-year-old Robin. Come on.
You know what? I've never heard anyone make that point, so fair enough.
If
I
you
have
know
no
that
counter.
movie, put the title in the comments because I can't remember it. I was
No, I
talking
can't
about it
remember what
yesterday.
it is either. Um, it's gonna be interesting. Maybe they make him 16. I don't know. I'm not sure how that is gonna work, but
Probably. They'll probably make him
hopefully it works
older.
well. Yeah, yeah, probably. Uh, Following up with that, Variety talks about Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, which is based on Tom King's comic run from 2021 and 2022. It's
Okay.
obviously about Superman's cousin, Kara Zor-El, who, by the sounds of the title, is much more. Sorry, I keep having brain farts today. It's much more hardcore of a character as compared to like Superman's uplifting type of spirit. Because I believe in this run, she's like trapped in space when like the planet exploded rather than being shipped off to Earth like Superman did. So I think it's about her living in outer space dealing with like having to fend for herself rather than being placed on
They're
Earth.
cousins, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know who would be great for that role? Brie Larson. She's never taken on a role quite like a Supergirl kind of character. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
Love
I
Brie.
can't
I
think of a
really
single
do.
one.
Love Brie Larson. She's great as Captain Marvel, and you fans, you need to knock it off. Ridiculous. She's wonderful.
Are you guys still bullying her? Come on, guys. Knock it off. That's weird.
Ridiculous. It's disgusting.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I'm kind of curious about is why we're focusing so much on like having two Superman movies and having another or not another, but having like Supergirl as well being on the release slate. Like, why is it with all the supers? Because I don't know. As much as there's like a really diverse slate here with all these projects, we're still having multiples of like Superman and Batman, and the story sounds cool, but I don't know. Right now, for like the introductions, I just would want to hear something else, I suppose, but um at least it's not her like coming to Earth, it's about her like in space and doing something different. So I've also
Yeah.
heard great things about that comic too. So maybe it's a
And everything in
really
this
good
is
pull,
half
good
of their
story.
first chapter, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
That's
half
a
of Gods and
huge phase
Monsters.
one because they just changed it from phase one to chapter one. That's a huge chapter one with all the stuff they're doing.
Yeah,
Holy
that's a good
moly.
point.
Marvel
Yeah.
doesn't do this much. You kidding me?
No.
Anyway, what's next? Is that it for the films?
No, one more movie. The
And
last movie is Swamp Thing, which
oh
this one
yeah, with James Mangold who wants to do it.
yeah, like following that there was reports that Mangold is in talks to direct this movie,
James
which
Mangold.
he does a variety of, genres, but
He
I was kind
sought
of
it out.
surprised. Yeah, exactly.
He
Like I'm a
sought it
little
out.
surprised. So he must be wanting to do like a horror type project, another superhero movie or something. Um which hey, I like him as a director, so if he wants to do it, that's totally fine, but it just makes me laugh cuz years ago we had that Swamp Thing TV show for a minute, and then after 5 episodes they just canceled the whole thing.
I got
Like they're in.
maybe a minute into the first episode and was like, "This is garbage." Whew.
Yeah, I remember being
Bad.
impressed by it, but I don't remember anything about the show. So maybe either it just wasn't that good or I just has been so many years I forgot
No,
about
you
it.
just I walked upstairs and said, "Kyle, this Swamp Thing show sucks," and you were like, "I think it's pretty good."
Sounds about right. Yeah,
I
I
don't
can't
know why
deny
they
that.
canceled it.
It was weird how they canceled it though. Like they were in I think they were like in mid production or something, and all of a sudden whatever studio was in charge, they were like, Nope, no more. You're just done. So
It's
I don't know.
because
It
you and
was
I were the only
weird.
one watching.
I mean, yeah, that's probably why. Um So yeah, I don't know. Why are you doing a Swamp Thing movie when like who cares? I don't know. Like it
I
feels like it's
think
very
very
a
what?
niche. It feels like it's just a very niche group of comic book fans that would want Swamp Thing anything. While I think even the most casual of comic book fans aren't clamoring for Swamp Thing stuff. I don't know.
I
I
think
just
this
found
has
it
more
weird.
to do with James Mangold than it does anything else. Because from what the reports I was seeing said is that he has been wanting to do a Swamp Thing movie for a while, for years, and that he has been looking for this project. So my guess, I mean, he has made some amazing movies. He's got Indie coming out, and they're probably saying, look, if he wants to do a passion project and he's willing to fit it into this new DCU, Which I also think it's funny that they're just doing, it's not the DCEU anymore. We're not extended. It's just the DCU. We're just the
Mm.
the thing, the universe, the DC Comics universe. I can't remember what
Yeah.
DC stands for. What does it stand for?
Jeez, I have my brain farts. I don't remember off the top of my head. I could look it up for you if you like.
Draco and Cabbage.
Draco, Cablage. I don't know what I'm saying anymore.
Um,
I'm off
but
my game today, man.
I think that makes more sense than anything else. That he went in and said, "I want to do this," and Gunn was like, "Cool, sounds great. We'll put it on the slate. You make
That
two
kind of
point five billion with Indy, and we'll talk."
that kind of makes sense because in the video that Gunn released, he was saying like it's not directly tied into the DCU, but it also carries over into other projects. And I was like, so it does have to do with the DCU. Like he never specified if it was Elseworlds or not. He was like, it's not, but it
Uh,
also is part of it. And I'm like,
he
no,
probably hasn't
dude, you
decided yet. He hasn't decided
I
yet.
know
Yeah, they're
exactly. And I'm like,
backpedaling.
dude, it it's only Swamp Thing. Like you can call it Elseworlds, and if you change your mind, just change it back. Like it's I don't know. This is the type of stuff that like just makes me roll my
Or don't
eyes.
address
Like
it.
not only
Don't address it at all. Just say we're
yeah,
doing a Swamp Thing
exactly.
movie. And then people will
Yeah.
bug you later about it. But just like it's crazy that DC made this big deal. They're gonna bring in the Kevin Feige. They go get a guy who's worked under him for the last decade. And then they say this is all the things we're gonna do. And then they're not sticking to that. It's just nuts. Anyway, what else? What about these TV shows? I think for the TV
Yeah.
shows, you just rattle them off. We don't need to go one by one. Rattle them all off. We'll talk about what we want. Because some of these I don't give a rat's bahootie about.
All right, sounds good. For television, we have the Creature Commandos animated series, which Gunn is hoping that
Whoa.
the voice actors can also play the live action versions if they need
And
to.
he's writing.
He is writing it. He's in the process of writing it.
And he
Sounds
said, yeah,
yep,
that they're gonna voice it because he specifically wants them to be animated, and then they will put them in live action somewhere as well, which
yep,
is
yep. I thought we
nutty.
were rattling off. What happened to rattling off?
Well, you can still talk about the important facts.
uh After that, they also talked about the Waller show, which which sounds like season 2 of Peacemaker is being put on hold, but characters from Peacemaker will appear on the Waller show.
Well, it makes sense. His
So,
wife is in the Peacemaker show, so got to keep her employed.
well, yeah, there is that too. Viola Davis is
She
also
does a
going to
good job.
be
She's good.
in the show as well. Yeah, she does. She does.
Which is also ridiculous. So you're sitting here and you're like, I don't know. Well, Henry Cavill, no. Everybody else, maybe. Viola Davis is Amanda Waller. Like they don't even discuss it. They're just like, yep, nope, she's staying. Yep, 100%. And it's just,
well,
I mean, I love it. I love Viola Davis. I
yeah.
get it, but it's inconsistent. You're not rebooting. That's not what they're doing. They're retooling, but they act like it's a reboot, and it's annoying. It's obnoxious.
I will say
Sorry.
this, I don't mind if they keep certain characters from the past if they never felt like they were a part of, like, continuity to begin with. So with Viola Davis appearing in
She's in both
James
Suicide
Gunn's
Squad.
Suicide Squad, I mean, who cares about, like, the crappy Suicide Squad? But, like, James
But
Gunn's
that's part
Suicide Su
of the DCEU. Is the first Suicide
I
Squad. They're
I
all
know,
bad movies.
I know, but I'm saying James Gunn's movie doesn't feel like it is, and they still brought back some of those characters anyway. So therefore,
But
like,
it
I'm fine
was.
with it. And my second point is she's also an Oscar winner, which makes her allowed to do this project. So I'm not
And
gonna fault
Affleck's won
them
an
for
Oscar.
they did say he might direct something. They've had talks with him.
I get, but you're proving my
If-
point. It's not a reboot, it's a retool.
Which I think, if I remember right, they did say like it was going to be a soft reboot of sorts. Which I know, like
After they
it's
said they would reboot and not have 5 Batmans running around.
I
Backpedaling.
get it. Yeah,
You don't get off the hook,
they're
DC. If
you
I have
do
to
it or
sit
you don't.
here for decades listening to how I'm not allowed to back off of all the Star Wars crap I get, then DC doesn't get off the hook either.
We're gonna
I'm
put
just
everyone to the
messing.
same standards.
I do find it obnoxious, though. I like that James Gunn has been pretty direct on Twitter and he's been
Mhm.
doing that. But again, it's just funny to me because they act like they're rebooting, but they're not. Anyway, I like Viola Davis. Yeah. So
For the record, I
What's
also
next?
don't care. For the record, I also just don't care about a Waller show anyway. I mean, I said the same thing about Peacemaker and wound up being good, so anything's possible. But
Peacemaker
I
was
don't know.
really good.
This, yeah, it just doesn't get me excited right now. Um, After that, we have the Lantern show, the Green Lantern show. It sounded like they're wanting to be in the vein of True Detective. Sorry, my texts are going off. And that it's going to focus on both Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart teaming up
True
for a mystery
Detective.
that plays. What?
It's the first time I'm hearing the True Detective comparison. It's like my guy.
Oh,
Are
yeah,
we
he
doing
said
a
in the video.
hard R X rated? I probably just heard it and couldn't believe it, so I forgot it because like what? What? Have you seen True Detective? And if you're basing it off True Detective, then I'm not excited for season two. Holy moly!
um, and finally, he does say that this is supposed to play a big role leading into the main story of the films and television, um, moving forward. So, yeah, I agree with you. When he did say in the vein of True Detective, I was thinking, okay, like, do you mean in tone, or do you just mean that we're gonna have like a mystery? Like, just say it's based off of like mystery stories then? Because Green Lantern, like, yeah, I guess there's some, I don't know, hardcore action elements to it, but like, you don't need it to be a gritty show. You just need it to be almost like a four quadrant show for everyone, and not worry about, like, it being dark and edgy. So,
Yeah, but like,
I'm not too sure what
why
he's
not just say it's
meaning.
a mystery? It's a mystery. We're gonna solve a mystery together with these lanterns.
Yeah,
And it
that's what
makes a
I'm
little
yeah.
bit more sense if this show is leading into a bigger storyline in the movies
Mhm,
because this is a movie. Like we talk about Supergirl, and I think Supergirl is actually a really good choice. I think that comic idea sounds really interesting and different, and I like that idea. But like we have been, we got the one Lantern movie, and then they've just never wanted to do lanterns again. But they would be an amazing story in the right hands. So
mhm.
we'll see. We'll see. Anything else?
Yeah,
Was that it?
no, 2 more shows. One of them being Paradise Lost, which is a Game of Thrones-ish story set on the island of Themyscira before the birth of Wonder Woman. You take this one.
It's
You
like
take this
Peter.
one.
It's like, or not Peter. It's what's Zazzy Boy's first name?
Oh, David? Yeah,
David Zaslav or whatever. It's like he
yeah,
walked up and he's like, "You make sure to drop every IP we have that's still good. Game of
yeah.
Thrones, everything. We're gonna make a Last of Us in the DC world." Yeah, that's how I picture him talking. Oh God,
I kinda agree with
Discovery
you.
Plus is better than every streaming service because he's high on cocaine. Um,
No, I hate it when there's
Look,
comparisons like this that they do in their pitches, you know? It's
here's
gonna be
what
like Game of
here's what I
Thrones,
don't
but in
like.
comics.
But here's the real thing that annoys me about it.
Yeah,
It's
let's
Game
hear
of
it.
Thrones with nothing but beautiful women. And Game of
Mhm,
Thrones obviously has beautiful women, but there's no men.
mhm.
That show is for the loser in his basement. It's for these guys who put up the billboards for Zack Snyder's thing, who have been obnoxious, who
Sure.
forced a bad Star Wars Episode 9. Like it's for that small community of fans who think that this property is theirs, that they're entitled to, and that grosses me out. I don't want a Game of
Mhm,
Thrones style show for all the women if it's going to be taken in that vein. Like, I think it could be really good, and I think it could be something that could be very empowering for women, and it could give a lot of actresses a really good chance to shine. But it needs to be taken in the right direction, and I'm very nervous it's just going to be a male gaze piece of crap. So somebody good needs to be writing that, and I hope the team writing it is all women. Tell you that right
or
now.
not only that, but the team of directors as well would be
Yeah,
much
everybody.
appreciated.
You know what?
Yeah.
Women on the entire set might be the greatest thing we've ever come up with in the history of the
No,
world.
I
We make that. It might be the greatest TV show in history. All women on the set. That's the only rule.
it'll be better than Game of Thrones. And in case if people
If
wanna
that
know, it's
show, you
yeah, you go.
finish.
I was
You
just gonna
finish.
say the, comic series that they're basing this off of is called Paradise Island Lost, so if you wanna check out those comics, there they are.
And the comics might be really good. I haven't read them. I'm nervous that it's just gonna appeal to male gaze. The real test will be the Bechdel
Yeah.
test. If it doesn't pass the Bechdel test, then we know that it was a male gay show. Like, you're going to have an Island of Women, Game of Thrones style, that's going to be awesome. That could be awesome. And they only talk about men. Get out of town with that attitude. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Yeah.
James Gunn, I
For
hope you're
sure.
watching. And I hope you're listening. And James
Which
Gunn's a
he
smart
is.
guy. I don't think he'll do that. So,
Yeah,
but
but
I'm hoping that'll be the case, because that's the show I'm nervous about the most, because I think it has a lot of potential, but I think it has the biggest or the lowest ceiling of just being gross. So, yeah.
no, you made a really good point. I don't think
Thank you.
I, yeah, I think of all the commentaries that I've checked out about like these movies and shows being planned, like that's the one that I definitely haven't heard of a point of view like that, which I think is an important one. Like I think you actually
That's why
are
they pay me the big bucks.
making a logical point of view about that for sure. The
Thank you.
final one here is a Booster Gold TV show, which some
Let's
comic fans I
go.
think are really yeah. I
Let's
mean,
go.
Alex is also clearly excited
Never read a
about it.
comic, but Booster Gold would show up in the Justice League Unlimited sometimes, and you were like, all right, guy, this guy's a good time. And you know that this is going to be the role Chris Pratt will play. 100%. This is
I
going to
hope
be,
not.
when the Guardians move over, it's going to be Pratt. And I still like Pratt. I think he's gotten a lot of unfair hate. But I think it's time for Chris to move on to other projects like Mario 2. Than more superhero roles. I'd like to see him branch off and go back to some of his roles like Moneyball and Zero
Parks
Dark
and
30.
Rec. Yeah.
Anyway, but what do you think about Booster Gold?
Not a character that I ever really liked per se. Just never really got me interested in the character, but I get why there are fans of his because he is one of the more funnier characters, and it is kind of a funny pitch of what if a superhero or not a superhero, what if a guy with imposter syndrome travels back in time and tries to take advantage of that to be like a famous superhero and get riches off of it, or like just get fame off of it, because that's what he feeds onto. And especially with like today's day and age of like influencers, it could work. Like there could easily be ways of him using 25th century tactics to like improve on the influencer game of the 21st century if they go that route maybe. Um I did
Which
like the
means
one
that
episode of
they're
you
dangerously
go.
close to making this a bad YouTube vlogger show.
Well,
Dangerously close to making it CW.
that's why it's coming from my mouth, and I hope they don't listen to that. This is why I don't write for any shows or movies, because I will make crap, as you could clearly hear from me. Yeah, I mean, I've seen like the one episode of him and Just League Unlimited. It's a good story. It's a good one-off episode, but it still wasn't anything where I was like, that's not a character that I need to really care about all that much, just for me personally. But I do know that there's a small audience that does like the characters, so good for them. Hopefully other people catch on to the show and like it, but right now I'm shrugging my shoulders going, all right, that's fine. We'll see how I think it looks moving forward. That's all I got.
Anything else on DC?
Nope, those were all the shows and movies that they've announced. By the sounds of it, they want to do 2 shows and 2 movies a year. Um, Seeing as though Superman and the Batman Part 2 are going to be both released in 2025. I'm wondering if that's when the stuff will be released, is in that year, or if they'll possibly do anything in 2024. We'll
I don't
see.
think so. I think
Yeah.
2024 is the dumping ground for or 2023 and 2024 are the just dumping these last 4 or 5 movies.
Yeah. That's kind of
And
what I
now
was thinking.
Shazam's in hot water too because of Zachary Levi's Twitter. So, wonderful.
Perfect timing,
Wonderful.
Zach.
Yeah, come on, dude. And then The Rock's now like had a great talk with James Gunn. He's like sitting in a Ferrari. He's like being as cool as he is, and he's like, Black Adam, he's coming back, and I'm
Any
playing
day
him.
now.
And we're gonna bring Henry Cavill back. My tequila, it's gonna be at the premiere. We're at a PG-13 film. Anyway, I still love you, Rock, but you got to calm down with Black Adam, man. The movie wasn't good. It just wasn't.
Yeah, his stick is
I'm
getting
dying.
as we're both dying here. It's
Whew.
just getting old for me. I just don't care anymore about
Yeah,
what The Rock
I'm
has to
ready.
say. So
And we're gonna review Knock at the Cabin, and I'm sitting here, and there's this huge debate about The Rock and John Cena and Dave Batista, and now Dave
it's
Batista
not
and
huge.
actors are talking about how he's this actor, and I saw him in Knock at the Cabin. Whew! I was like, all right, Dave. I think
Yeah,
he could go on to be Oscar style. Let's go. Keep it up,
yeah.
big guy. I'm a big fan of Dave Batista. Did not know much about him till Drax. Do not like the way they've taken Drax in Guardians 2 and some of the Marvel movies, but that is not on him. He does a phenomenal job. Big fan. Anyway, is that it for DC? Are we moving on to the Star Wars news?
Yeah, that's all I got on this list. That's all we need to talk about. Let's hope that this winds up being a good path, but some stuff that we are looking forward to and some stuff of their plan and their ideas that we question a little, but this is only the first week. Like we just need to see how things play out. Hope for the best, right?
Yeah, 2 movies in, and they both kind of crap the bed. Nobody likes the new Superman. James Gunn's fired. We bring back somebody that didn't work. Ben Affleck's coming in to take over the reins. DC, just let Matt Reeves make his trilogy, please. That's all I ask. Um, all right, so Star Wars. This was a little piece of news that in the Star Wars world, I think had good conversation about, but wasn't as big as I think it should have been, with some interesting drops. So Daisy Ridley was in I can't remember the name of the film, but it premiered at Sundance. So she's been doing some interviews. It's been a while since we've seen her. Um, and she's interviewing with Rolling Stone, StarWarsNews.net, who does an amazing job, picks up on it and kind of reads into some of the stuff she's saying. She says quite a few things I think are really interesting. One is that she is open to coming back, and she says something along the lines of, the phone lines are open. I'm looking for employment or something, because she has not really worked a lot since Star Wars. I think she probably took a good break for a while, which makes sense. And I do think the backlash was big enough where some agents are like, we don't want to hire her. And I even think John Boyega had a hard time with that too for a little bit, but he has been lucky enough to get in some really good underground roles in some movies that are not being talked about enough. I mean, you and I talk about, was it Breaking, right? The title of the film. It was really,
Yeah.
really good. Um, so, and then, obviously our boy, why can't I think of his name? I'm drawing a blank.
Oscar?
Oscar Isaac, yeah, he's just stuck around with Disney. He's like, I'm not going anywhere. You keep me employed all day. uh, but
I play the game.
she did some projects with Pedro Pascal, and she was talking about how she hasn't watched all of the new Star Wars stuff, but the stuff she has, she really loved. She was like, man, I'm standing next to the Mandalorian. It's really cool, and she's open to coming back, which is something that when Episode 9 came out, all the actors were like, no. John Boyega has kind of stuck to his guns on that. He's like, I'm not coming back to Star Wars. And I think
Mm,
rightfully so. I think the idea of John Boyega always being a Jedi is didn't have as much ground as I think fans think it did. And could he have been a really cool Jedi and a great story? Yes. I think realistically, the thing that really tanked his story was Episode 9. And if you look, John Boyega was written the same role back to back. I understand people didn't like how it was in The Last Jedi. He does the exact same plot line in Episode 9. They're not really together, the three of them. They've made a big deal that they are. If you rewatch the original trilogy, guess who's are rarely ever together? All three of them. Um, but it's just it's just dumb. But one of the things she said, Daisy Ridley, going back here, that I think was really interesting is she kind of offhand said that the idea of Rey being no one was actually JJ's. It's what she said. And I think that's really interesting. And I think if that is true, and I don't think Daisy would lie, I don't think she's lying to save face, because I think JJ has gotten hit hard. I think he went from the golden boy in Hollywood to a hated boy in Hollywood very quickly. And Rise of Skywalker made a lot of money, but man, did it get, I mean, it is on the bottom of almost every fan's list. The Last Jedi will go anywhere from top 3 to bottom. Rise of Skywalker, I don't think I've met anyone who has it higher than 3. Bottom 3, excuse me. Force Awakens has been consistently, and I think in everybody's middle of the round to the higher end of the list, and I think that's rightfully so and fair. But the point she makes, if she's not lying, and she says that the original idea is that JJ wanted Ray to be no one. If she's not lying, that tells me that Kathy Kennedy and the execs at Lucasfilm had way more say in Episode 9 than we fully believe, because that to me screams studio decision, that they are reading the stuff that people are complaining about on Reddit and saying, nope, this is what these fans said. I read 5 tweets about it, so it must be true, instead of letting your filmmaker make a good film. And I think it's very, very interesting. Do you have any thoughts on that? On anything I've said so far?
Um, it's not surprising to me if it is like
I
studio
don't think it is either.
decisions, but it also just shows that there wasn't a through line plan that they stuck with. I mean, it's kind of a hard dilemma because you want audiences would like the director, I think, to be able to, or the director or the writer, whoever is in charge, to have their own story be told, as long as it's the good one. But at the same time, if you are making a trilogy of movies that goes from one to another, there still needs to be some agreements to be had if you decide to do different um, directors in charge of each project. And unfortunately, they decided not to have that through line really go through by the sounds of it. And now, as we're looking back at the past, so it just kind of speaks to me as what we've been debating or theorizing is kind of true, that there just wasn't a through line plan, that JJ did have ideas to have Ray be no one, which I think it's more interesting than anything else. But then
She should in the
whether
Avatar of the Star Wars world.
whether it was because the studio decided to change that, or whether it was because um, Ryan Johnson decided to change that, it just went to show that there just wasn't a through line plan, or even the most basic of through line plans to be had. Which, I like Last Jedi and I like The Force Awakens, but at the end of the day, there really wasn't a through line through it, and I wish that there kind of was, so that way there could have been a same page and a good, and at the very least, a good conclusion, at the
I'll tell
bare
you this.
minimum.
I'll die on this hill. The idea that we needed a plan from start to finish, I think is fair, and also like a bad take at times. I'm not saying you're given a bad take, just hear me out. But where I'm getting this at is that you have 2 choices. You either hire someone like JJ to make 3 movies, and he creates 3 movies and a storyline. If you don't do that, you need a guy like Kevin Feige who can sit there and say, okay, or you come up with beats if you're going to do different directors and say, okay, each movie needs to go boom, boom, boom. You can do whatever else you want, but you need to hit these 3 beats, throughout your trilogy. Or option 3, which is what they started doing and backpedaled on. You get 3 directors, they get to go off whatever came before them, and you let them make their movie. That's what you do. You don't backpedal because of backlash, which I still, and honestly, if you disagree with this point, you're not paying attention, truly. The Last Jedi haters is such a more minimum than it is those who really love the movie. If you do disagree with that, you're not paying attention, because I go out and I look for negative things all the time. I look for them, and it's so hard to find them. It's very hard. I'll find some,
It's also
but
very healthy.
I am finding one for every dozen positive
Mhm.
things I see. And The Last Jedi randomly trends all the time on Twitter, because people all the time are like, "Hey, remember when a bunch of people thought that everyone hated this movie and we really didn't?" Uh I get, for the older generation, it's like that. You look at, Ian McGregor's in interviews talking about how he really hated when he made the prequels when it first came out, because he would talk to fans and they would tell him how horrible his movie was. And then the kids grew up and were like, "Oh my God, I love your movie." And he's like, then the kids I made it for grew up. And that will happen with this next set of movies. But I do think when you look objectively, I think when those kids grow up and they look at it objectively, they can tell what's good and what's bad. All those kids that grew up that love the prequels love it for nostalgia, but it's still ranked, most of them, at the bottom of their lists for a
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah.
And
And they're
the
still
the, the
good within the
mistake
bad.
the mistake made sounds like, because of this name drop, that it was more on Kathy and the heads at Lucasfilm than it was on JJ. And I think that's probably pretty true. But I mean, these leaked scripts you hear about what Colin Trevorrow would have done, you read that and you go, hey, that makes a lot of sense. It's a cool story. Like, wow, everybody has a cool arc. And then you see what JJ did, and you're like, oh, he definitely took some from that script. Like, if this is true, and I believe it is true, I believe that Colin leaked that script on purpose to get save some face on how he was treated. Um, and it's a bummer. We haven't had a Star Wars movie since. And they were originally going to try to pump out 2 a year like Marvel, and we haven't had one since. And it tells you that they really have hated how the Rise of Skywalker was treated. And Kathy got her contract renewed. And I think what saved her is Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, who came in and said, put us in charge. And I think they have way more say. They're not ever going to be officially in charge of the studio, I don't think, like James Gunn. They might maybe one day, but she just re-upped her contract. I think that she said, I want to stick around. George entrusted this to me, which is true. He wouldn't have sold it if it wasn't for Kathy taking on the role, because he loves Kathy. And Kathy has made some of the greatest movies, has been a part of greenlighting movies that a lot of execs said no to. But I think that she said, let me stay around. You guys have control. You tell me when I'm wrong. And then I think Dave Filoni was like, easy peasy. And then he does whatever he wants and he makes 800 shows. But it's very interesting that Daisy is open to coming back, that she is saving some JJ face and throwing some, I think, low key shots at the studio. And I think it's a very interesting conversation. But anyway, that's about all I have on it. But any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I hope this reminds other directors, other studios to take another look at Daisy Ridley, see if they think she could fit in some projects, cuz I thought she did very well in those movies, and she deserves a career just as much as any of the other actors that are
She's an Oscar
involved with
caliber
these
actress.
movies. You think so?
Oh, absolutely. I think
Nice.
some of these Sundance movies, that the Sundance movie she was in, is apparently pretty good. So I hope it's
Cool.
I hope it gives her some, maybe not Oscar cred, but just like, oh, hey, she's back. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. In terms of Star Wars movies coming back, I don't want them to go with the 2-year plan. I'd rather just have one,
I don't either.
possibly every other year, every 2 years or so.
Every
It's
Christmas,
supposed
every
to
other
it's
Christmas.
a it does still need to feel special, and I think that's just a good way of doing it, is spacing out the time of it rather than cranking out so many. But that's just my opinion.
All right, guys, what do you think of everything we talked about today? Comment below, let us know. Like, subscribe, share. Episode 20 is back. The Movie Meals podcast, Patreon exclusive, blah blah blah, all that good things. And as always, thanks for watching, Mom.
See you guys.